Hi all, I'd like to present another instructive game today. Here, the central theme which I wish to focus heavily on is the idea of drawing the opponent's king out into the position. So this game, which has this theme very well, is Mikhail Krasenkow versus Nakamura, Hikaru Nakamura, played in October 2007 in a tournament in Barcelona. Playing white, Krasenkow played knight f3 and Nakamura played knight f6. Now c4 was played, so we have the English opening. e6, g3, and now Nakamura played d5. Bishop g2, bishop e7. The white king looks very safe here, doesn't it? After castles, this fianchetto usually guarantees white quite an easy game to play in terms of not having to worry about his king position. But we'll see how Nakamura later exposed the white king and drew it out into the open. b3 was played and now a5. Knight c3 and now c6. Now one thing that c6 does, as well as support this central pawn, is the possibility now of the black queen going to b6. And we'll see later how that is actually quite important, because this f2 pawn later turns out to be a liability and a method for drawing out the white king. Let's bear this idea in mind as we work through this game. d4 and now knight bd7, queen c2, and now Nakamura does something about his bad bishop. He plays b6, so this bishop can come out to either a6 or b7 now. e4, and now he plays bishop a6. So this diagonal is put under pressure. And after knight d2, c5 was played. So there's a lot of central tension now. White plays e takes d5, resolving some of that central tension. And now c takes d4 was played. Knight b5, and now e takes d5. So it's quite a complex middle game position. Knight takes d4, and now rook c8. So black set up a couple of pins, virtual pins, one there and one here. White now plays rook e1, so trying to reduce the pressure on this diagonal a bit. Notice though that the rook on f1 was protecting this pawn on f2. Let's keep a mental note of that. And now let's look at Nakamura's next move, b5. So it does a couple of things. It increases the pressure on this c pawn and the c-file pressure generally, but also note that the black queen can now come to b6, which in conjunction with this diagonal, this could be a major target for drawing out the white king, which is really the central theme I want to focus for this game. Bishop b2 was played, and now rook e8. So rook e8, and the queen is now free potentially to move to b6, because the rook is now protecting this bishop on e7. Queen d1, and now Nakamura took on c4, and after bc4, he finally plays queen b6. So that rook had enabled the queen to move, and now look at that vulnerability again in this light. The queen is lining up on that important diagonal now, and so we have the start of a mechanism potentially for drawing the white king out. After rook b1, Nakamura played d takes c4, and now one of the obstructions on this diagonal moves out of the way, knight c6. So here, white's idea is to have this discovered attack on the black queen. Nakamura falls in for this. He plays rook takes c6, and after bishop takes f6, it would seem as though black has done a very bad blunder. If he moves the queen back, for example to c7, then white is clearly winning with bishop takes e7. The central theme of the game is the way black actually wins from the position. Can you see the spectacular move that Nakamura played here? I'll give you 5 seconds, starting from now. Nakamura played the move queen takes f2 check. And this is the start of drawing the white king out. The central theme I want this game to illustrate. King takes f2, and now the move bishop c5 check was played. And all of a sudden, the black king, from its previously safe as houses position, is being brought out in the open. Let's have a look now at king e2. King e2 is not possible because of the rook. King f3 or king f1. Let's look at king f1. c3 check. So this bishop on this diagonal is useful now. Say rook e2. And now here, a crushing move according to Rybka is c2. So decoying the queen is away. After queen takes c2, bishop takes e2 check, king e1, and black's winning everything. You know, bishop d3 check now, winning the white queen, king d1, and now here, either bishop takes c2 check, or even more crushing, apparently according to Rybka, is bishop f2, threatening rook e1 mate. So this would be a completely crushing position. If knight c2 check and white's really just falling to pieces, all the material's going. For example, king takes, rook takes c4 check, king d3, and now here either rook a4 is recommended or rook c7 by Rybka. So black would be clearly winning in this position. So let's go back. So bishop c5 check. So the king can't really go to f1 because of this bishop on this diagonal. So it goes to f3. And now we see rook takes f6 check. So this rook, which came from the queen side, spectacularly is coming to the king side now, drawing the king further out, up the board now. So king g4 was played. And now Nakamura plays knight e5 check. In the game, the white king went to g5. But let's have a look at rook takes e5 as an alternative. Here, the strongest move, according to Rybka, is bishop c8 check. And if, for example, king h4, then rook takes e5, and it's actually a mate in 4 by force. For example, rook b6, a very, very desperate computer defence. Rook h6, just with the idea of clearing this diagonal now, for the bishop to retreat. Rook takes h6, bishop e7 check, and the white king has got nowhere to run, so rook f6 is the only legal move. Bishop takes f6 mate. So after this knight e5 check, the white king went to g5, and now here, drawing the king out, Nakamura now played a rook g6 check, keeping the king in check, and after king h5 he played f6. So f6 now threatens simply rook g5 check, because the f6 pawn supports the g5 square. White now desperately took on e5, and after rook takes e5 check, king h4, Nakamura finished the game off with bishop c8, which Rybka agrees is the strongest move. And it's actually a forced mate in 7. Here is the line. Bishop d5 check. Rook takes g4. Rook d3 is the most clinical. Queen f3 desperate. Rook takes, knight takes. Rook g4. King h3. Rook g5. King h4. Bishop f2 mate. So a forced mate in 7. But in the game, it ended after bishop c8, the retreat bishop c8. So let's have a quick overview and summary. So the white king was seemingly safe as houses, but Nakamura somehow used the pressure on f2 and also this diagonal later as a way of really drawing the king out. So when the opponent has a seemingly safe as houses king position, that's not always the case. You need a single pawn as a target to sometimes draw the king out in a spectacular fashion. And if you ever play such a fantastic game, it could be immortalised on chessgames.com with your name. So knight c6, and now rook takes c6. Brilliantly preparing this stunning queen sacrifice. Queen takes f2, and the king was mercilessly brought out into the open, and a mating net was woven here with f6. In this position, by the way, king h4 there's simply Rook h6, and that's a mate in 3. The only move here, and now g5 check, king h3, rook takes h5 mate. So the king was brought out, and bishop c8 was the final move of the game. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.